The Klingon warships dropped out of warp, disruptors blazing, raining destruction on Earth's outnumbered defense fleet, their first mistake. Their second was not realizing how badly they'd pissed off humanity. "Divert auxiliary power to forward shields," Captain Sean Shaw barked, gripping the arms of the command chair as the USS Intrepid shuddered under a volley of disruptor fire. On the view screen, a flock of Klingon birds of prey swooped in, talons extended, hungry for blood. For 6 months, the Klingon bastards had raided human colonies, bombarding cities and slaughtering civilians. Men, women, children. They didn't care. Millions dead, because the Klingons wanted to prove they had the biggest dicks in the quadrant. Well, humanity was about to show them the true meaning of overcompensation. Shaw turned to Lieutenant Chen at Tactical. "Do we have a firing solution for that antimatter warhead?" Chen hesitated, then nodded, locked on the Klingon flagship. "Power levels critical," Lieutenant Davis called from the engineering station. "We've lost warp drive and impulse engines are failing." A conduit exploded overhead, showering the bridge with sparks. The acrid stench of smoke stung Shaw's nostrils as he stared at the birds of prey circling for the kill. On the fuzzy view screen, the scarred visage of Warlord Horus appeared, baring sharpened teeth. "Surrender now, humans," Horus snarled in thickly accented English, "or watch your homeworld burn." Shaw opened a channel, his voice cold as the void between stars. "Attention Klingon fleet, this is Captain Sean Shaw of the USS Intrepid. You have 5 seconds to turn your ships around before I shove an antimatter warhead so far up your collective asses, you'll be shitting quarks for a month." Horus laughed, a harsh bark devoid of humor. "Your species lacks the spine to—" "Warhead away," Chen reported. On the view screen, a bright spear lanced out from the Intrepid's forward launcher. Then the screen went white. The shock waves slammed into them, sending the Intrepid tumbling. Consoles exploded, crewmen screamed. Through the static-laced sensors, Shaw saw Horus's flagship vanish in the heart of a newborn sun. A third of the Klingon fleet gone in the blink of an eye. The survivors scattered, fleeing the expanding fireball that had once been their mightiest ships. Slumping back in his shattered command chair, Shaw allowed himself a tight smile. The Intrepid was lost, her crew consigned to the void. But Earth was safe, humanity would endure. And the Klingons? They'd just learned a very important lesson. Never fuck with humanity. The Klingons were defeated, their mighty warships reduced to dust. But Earth's victory was Pyrrhic. Billions were dead, major cities lay in ruins, and the global economy teetered on the brink of collapse. Governments toppled and anarchy reigned in the streets. Desperate survivors huddled in the wreckage, scavenging for scraps. Captain Shaw, now Admiral Shaw, stood on the bridge of the hastily constructed orbital command station Unity 1. He looked down at the blue-green marble below, scarred and battered, but still beautiful. Intact data feeds showed the extent of the damage. Power grids were down across entire continents. Crops withered in the fields. Hospitals overflowed with the injured and dying. "What's the word from the Council?" Shaw asked, not taking his eyes off Earth. Commander Davis shook her head. "They're not sending aid. They say since we're not a member state, it's not their problem." Shaw slammed his fist on the console. "Bastards! We saved their asses from the Klingons, and this is how they repay us?" As if summoned by Shaw's fury, a man's face appeared on the view screen. Chiseled features, piercing eyes, an aura of supreme confidence. "People of Earth," he began, his voice resonant and commanding. "I am Prometheus. In our darkest hour, I bring you light." Over the following weeks, Prometheus seemed to be everywhere at once. He walked among the rubble, comforting the bereaved, rallying the disheartened. He forged treaties between fractious nation-states and brokered deals with off-world suppliers. Under his guidance, rebuilding began in earnest. But Prometheus had greater ambitions. He gathered Earth's greatest minds and challenged them to reach further than they ever dared. Theoretical concepts became reality at a breathtaking pace. Zero-point energy reactors replaced fusion power plants. Nanoforges churned out fleets of sleek, deadly warships. Warp drives evolved into quantum slipstream. A decade later, Earth was reborn, a gleaming citadel of soaring towers and verdant parks. The Terran Dominion, as it was now called, had outposts on 100 worlds. Shaw, aged but unbowed, watched from his office on Unity 1 as a squadron of Wraith-class battlecruisers slid into orbit. Their phasic shields shimmered silver blue, their particle lances poised to strike at a word from the High Marshal. Prometheus, no one used his old name anymore, smiled as he read the latest reports. The council races were nervous. Let them be. Soon they would kneel before the might of the Terran Dominion. The galaxy would be his, and humanity would at last claim its rightful place as masters of the stars. But first, there was the matter of a diplomatic mission to the Council homeworld. High Marshal Prometheus donned his dress whites, every inch the refined statesman, even as he... On the scorched surface of Konos, Warlord Horus paced the obsidian halls of the Klingon High Council. His boots clicked against the stone, each step fueled by simmering rage. The sting of defeat at Earth burned like acid in his veins. Stripped of his command, his battle-scarred face twisted in a scowl as subordinates averted their eyes, unwilling to provoke his wrath. "Warlord Horus!" a voice called out, echoing off the vaulted ceiling. Commander Krull strode forward, his bearing proud and defiant. "The Council demands an explanation for your failure." Horus snarled, baring sharpened teeth. "You dare question me, Krull? I should gut you where you stand." Krull met Horus's glare unflinching. "You led our finest warriors to their deaths. The humans made fools of us." "Enough!" bellowed Councillor Campek, his craggy features etched with disdain. "Horus, what do you propose to salvage this debacle?" Horus turned to the assembled councillors, a savage gleam in his eye. "We build a warship unlike any the galaxy has seen, a vessel that will make the Terrans tremble." Whispers rippled through the chamber. Campek leaned forward. "And what would this ship be capable of?" "Destruction on a planetary scale. We will forge a superweapon to scour Earth clean of human filth." "The cost would be astronomical," protested Councillor Duras. "Our resources are not limitless." Horus slammed his fist on the podium. "We are Klingons. We do not shrink from a challenge. With this ship, the apex predator, we shall grind the Terrans beneath our boots and seize our rightful place as masters of the galaxy." The council chamber erupted in shouts of approval. Campek raised a gnarled hand for silence. "Very well, Horus. You may begin construction. But know this. Failure will not be tolerated again." As the councillors dispersed, Krull fell into step beside Horus. "A bold plan, Horus, but even the mightiest warship is useless without knowing your enemy's weaknesses." Horus grunted in acknowledgement. "Then we shall find them. Infiltrate the Terran Dominion, uncover their secrets. When the time comes, we will crush them without mercy." Deep in the Kavar shipyards, an army of labourers swarmed over the skeletal frame of the apex predator. Towering cranes hefted immense hull plates into place as smelters belched gouts of molten metal. Horus surveyed the organized chaos, a cruel smile playing across his lips. The humans would pay for their insolence, and the Klingon Empire would rise ascendant. On Earth, a nondescript transport shuttle touched down at the new San Francisco spaceport. A hatch hissed open, and a stream of ragged figures shuffled out, eyes downcast and shoulders hunched. To the customs agents, they were just another batch of refugees, fleeing the ravages of the Klingon invasion. But among the huddled masses, a few walked with a predatory grace, their posture a shade too perfect, their gazes a touch too keen. The Klingon infiltrators had arrived, and the Terran Dominion lay open before them. Staring at the holographic displays flooding his office, High Marshal Prometheus's eyes narrowed. Red icons flashed urgently, highlighting suspected Klingon infiltration cells across Earth and its colonies. The evidence was damning. Com intercepts, suspicious financial transfers, reports of sabotage. His fingers clenched into fists as anger surged through him. The Klingon scum dared to slither into his dominion, subvert his people. He slammed a hand on the comm panel. General Varys, initiate Protocol Omega-5. Effective immediately. The Terran Dominion is under martial law. Understood, High Marshal, Varys replied crisply. The view outside shifted as blast shutters slammed down, armored troops pouring into the streets. Prometheus stared at his reflection in the darkened window. Activate the Praetorian Guard. Full discretionary authority to neutralize all threats. Within hours, the arrests began. Jack-booted soldiers kicked down doors, dragging screaming suspects from their homes. Impromptu detention centers filled to capacity, interrogators working around the clock to extract confessions and root out collaborators. Prometheus watched impassively as haggard prisoners were paraded across news feeds, his expression cold and unyielding. Let the bleeding hearts wail about civil liberties. He would do whatever it took to keep humanity safe. But even as the purges intensified, unrest spread like a cancer. Protests erupted in city squares, rioters clashing with riot police. Prometheus responded with an iron fist, unleashing combat drones and sonic cannons on the dissenters. Amidst the crackdown, a priority alert flashed across the High Marshal's display. Grainy images resolved into a titanic warship, all jagged angles and bristling weapons. The apex predator. "High Marshal!" Commander Davis shouted over the din of klaxons. "The Klingons have launched. They're on a direct course for Earth." Prometheus rose to his feet, his face a mask of grim determination. "Mobilize the fleet, all ships to converge on the apex predator. I'll take command from the Inexorable." As his flagship slipped from space dock, Prometheus settled into the command chair, watching Earth dwindle into a blue marble behind them. Ahead, near the swirling storms of Jupiter, the Klingon armada awaited, the apex predator looming at its center, like an obsidian dagger aimed at humanity's heart. "All ships engage at will," Prometheus ordered, his voice hard as neutronium. "Take down that abomination no matter the cost." Space lit up with the fire of 1,000 suns as the two fleets collided. Phasers and disruptors crisscrossed the void, ships exploding into plumes of molten debris. The Inexorable shuddered as a lucky shot penetrated its shields, consoles erupting in showers of sparks. Prometheus held fast, watching the apex predator carve a path of destruction through his ships. They couldn't stop it. Not like this. "Helm!" he called out, an eerie calm settling over him. "Set a collision course, ramming speed." Ignoring the chorus of protests from his crew, Prometheus locked eyes with the monstrous warship swelling in the viewscreen. Horus would be there, on the bridge. Let them meet then, one last time. The Inexorable accelerated to a flank speed, the groans of overstressed hull plates rising to a keening wail. The apex predator filled the screen, its prow yawning open to reveal the maw of its planet killer. "For Earth," Prometheus whispered. "For humanity." The collision was cataclysmic. The Inexorable, all 20 million tons of it, slammed into the apex predator's command tower in a blinding flash of light. Prometheus felt a moment of searing heat, then nothing at all. Critically damaged, venting atmosphere from 100 rents, the apex predator listed out of control. On the shattered bridge, Horus lay pinned beneath a fallen support beam, blood pooling around his snarling lips. With a ragged cheer, the Terran fleet fell upon the wounded Leviathan, tearing it apart with renewed ferocity. Escape pods shot from the dying warship as the Klingons fled, their grand ambitions shattered like so much ferro-ceramic. In the floating ruins of the Inexorable, a final message played across fracturing holoscreens. High Marshal Prometheus, battered but unbowed, spoke to his people one last time. "Citizens of the Terran Dominion, today we have faced the abyss and emerged unbroken. The Klingon threat is ended, their greatest weapon destroyed. But the cost..." He paused, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "The cost has been high, too high. In our zeal to defend ourselves, we have become that which we fought against. We have sacrificed our principles, our ideals, on the altar of security. And now we must ask ourselves, what is left? What have we become? Have we..." The message cut out, dissolving into static. Across Earth, Stunned silence reigned as a battered populace struggled to comprehend a world without Prometheus, without the unyielding hand that had held chaos at bay. In the corridors of power, a new generation of leaders scrambled to fill the vacuum. Some called for a return to democracy, to the values of the old Earth. Others sought to maintain the authoritarian order, lest the Dominion fracture and crumble. But one thing was clear to all. The galaxy had changed, and humanity, for better or worse. In the smouldering ruins of the inexorable, a figure stirred amidst the twisted metal and shattered bulkheads. Admiral Lucius Klein, his uniform torn and bloodied, pulled himself from the wreckage, a cold determination etched on his face. As the former head of the Dominion's secret police, he had survived far worse. Klein picked his way through the debris-strewn corridors, stepping over the bodies of fallen crewmen. The ship was dead, its once proud halls now a tomb. But Klein's mind was already racing ahead, calculating his next move. On the surface, chaos reigned. The sudden power vacuum left by Prometheus' demise had fractured the Dominion, with various factions scrambling for control. Klein watched from the shadows as they tore at each other like rabid dogs, each claiming to be the true heir to Prometheus's legacy. Pathetic, Klein thought. They were all weak, unworthy of the mantle of leadership, but he would show them what true strength looked like. He gathered his loyalists, the most ruthless and fanatical of the secret police. They struck swiftly and without mercy, assassinating key rivals and seizing vital infrastructure. The streets ran red with blood as Klein's forces crushed any resistance. Within days, Klein had secured his grip on power. He addressed the nation from the steps of the shattered capital, his voice thundering across the airwaves. "People of Earth," he began, his eyes cold and unblinking. "In this time of crisis, we cannot afford the luxury of weakness. The enemies of humanity circle like vultures, waiting for us to falter. We must be strong, unyielding in the face of adversity." He paused, letting his words sink in. "As of this moment, I am assuming direct control of the government and armed forces. This is not a coup, but a necessity. Under my leadership, we will restore order and security. We will rebuild our shattered defenses and make Earth a power to be reckoned with once more." His gaze hardened. "But make no mistake, there will be sacrifices. Dissent will not be tolerated. Anyone who challenges the state will be dealt with swiftly and permanently. The time for half measures is over. We must be willing to do whatever it takes to survive." As Klein spoke, his Praetorian Guard fanned out across the city, their black armor gleaming in the sun. They kicked down doors, dragging suspected dissidents from their homes and executing them in the streets. Makeshift detention centers sprang up overnight, filled to bursting with anyone who dared question the new order. In the shipyards and factories, the pace of production accelerated to a feverish pitch. New warships took shape, bristling with advanced weapons and shielding. Klein poured vast resources into research and development, pushing the boundaries of military technology. He would forge Earth into an impregnable fortress, a bastion of human might. But even as Earth's power grew, so did Klein's paranoia. He saw enemies in every shadow, traitors lurking behind every smile. His secret police worked tirelessly, ferreting out plots both real and imagined. The list of proscribed persons swelled into the millions, and the detention centers became death camps. Klein's madness reached its zenith when whispers reached him of a new alien alliance forming beyond Earth's borders. These upstarts sought to challenge human supremacy, to shackle Earth with treaties and regulations. Klein would not stand for it. He summoned his generals to an emergency meeting, his eyes blazing with a fanatic light. "We must strike first," he declared, stabbing a finger at the star map. "We will annihilate their leadership in one decisive blow, ready the fleet for immediate deployment." The target was Zephyrus, a teeming metropolis rumored to be the Alliance's secret headquarters. Klein's armada descended on the unsuspecting planet like a swarm of locusts, plasma bombs raining from the sky and incinerating entire city blocks. Civilian ships burned on the launch pads, their crews trapped inside. The screams of the dying echoed across the surface. But as the smoke cleared, a terrible realization dawned. The intelligence had been wrong. Zephyrus was no military base, but a civilian hub, and the Alliance, far from caught off guard, had been waiting in ambush. A vast alien fleet materialized from the void, advanced ships that made Earth's vessels look like toys. They tore through Klein's armada like tissue paper, scattering the once proud ships like leaves before a hurricane. Klein could only watch in horror as his dreams of conquest turned to ashes. The last thing he saw before his ship exploded was the looming hull of an alien dreadnought, its weapons glowing with eldritch energies. In the aftermath of the disastrous attack, Earth lay prostrate before the Alliance's might. The surviving ships limped home, their hulls scored by alien fire and their crews shaken to the core. The Dominion, once the terror of the galaxy, was reduced to a mere vassal state, its freedoms and independence stripped away. But the final indignity came in the form of a shocking revelation. The Alliance had not acted alone, but at the behest of a shadowy puppet master, Commander Kral, the disgraced Klingon officer who had fled into exile after the destruction of the apex predator. In a final transmission, Kral gloated over the broken remnants of Earth's empire. "You thought yourselves the masters of the galaxy," he sneered, "but in truth, you were merely pawns in a greater game. The Klingon Empire will rise again, and this time there will be no one to stop us." As the transmission faded, a stunned silence fell over the Dominion's leadership. They had been played, manipulated into destroying themselves from within. The dream of human supremacy lay shattered, and the survivors were left to pick up the pieces and ponder the bitter cost of their hubris. In the end, it was not the Klingons or any external threat that had been Earth's undoing, but the darkness within the human heart itself. The lust for power, the fear of the other, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of dominance. These were the true enemies, and they had won. If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.